Okay, 7/5 parts of similar triangles. And I kind of combined three of the four things together here. In essence, a lot of this section is about this fact. In similar triangles, the corresponding altitudes, angle bisectors, and medians have the same ratio as the corresponding sides. They are all proportional. Okay? So you can add that, and then we'll show, explain that in the examples we're going to do. Let's everybody open up our books, our red books, to page 92. Has everybody got that? Where's yours? What I'd like to look at is number 1. On page 92. Okay, first things first. They've given us information to say that these two triangles are similar if you look at the angles. Now, what has been given to me? I know that this triangle is similar to this triangle. What do we have anything? Do we know anything about the corresponding sides? Do we have some sides here that correspond? We don't have letters here, so we're gonna have to use the numbers that are associated with that side.
24 over 32.
Or 24 and 32, they correspond to each other.
Yeah.
Does everyone agree with that? That's a 2 mark to the 3 mark, 2 mark to 3 mark. Okay, so you said you want to do 24 over 32. Now, for me to write a proportion here, I need another ratio that's equal to that. What is this line called here, or this segment called here? It's called an altitude. And what did we say in our blanket statement? That the corresponding altitudes, and what I mean by corresponding is, see how this altitude corresponds, because there's 3 different altitudes I can draw for every triangle, isn't there? But as we see, this is the altitude that comes from this corresponding angle, so they correspond to each other. So the ratio of the altitudes is the same as the ratio of the sides. So if I go 24 over 32, what can I do? What do I need to do with the altitudes? Equal to, well, I did the 24 on top, so I need to put the x 30. Questions? Does everybody see where the logic and how we got to that? You can add corresponding altitudes to your list of things that are proportional to the sides, corresponding sides. Well, the rest is just algebra, is it not? I'm left with, what's 24 times 30? Can anyone tell me that? 720 is equal to 32x. Well, what would I do next? I divide both sides by 32. I'd find x equal to what? Huh? 22.5? Or 22 and a half? Or 45 over 2? Questions there? What about number 2? Do I have a set of what sides correspond? The what? 39 and the what? So 39 over 26 equals, well, since these two are similar, 25 over x. Isn't it just algebra the rest of the way out? Do we need to do that, or would you rather just set up a couple more? Okay, let's look at this one. What'd they do to us here? They tried to confuse you. They gave you a median, didn't they? Oh, and by the way, this was a median here, was it not? They gave you two medians here, but they don't tell you anything about it. But still, do I know, can I write a proportion here? What could I write? 2x plus 1 over what? X plus 4 would equal what? Well, which one would I do first?
40.
I did the 2x plus 1 on top, so what would need to be on top over here? 40 over what? Now I just have a big, ugly proportion to solve, don't I? I'm just going to multiply the 25 times the 2x and the 1, and the 40 times the x and the 4. And then I'll solve that equation. Okay? Any questions there? This isn't hard at all, is it? We're just adding some things that are proportional. Okay, the other thing we need to look at here is when you have one triangle and you have an angle bisector, a neat thing happens. So I'm going to do my best to draw a triangle here. And then I'm going to try to do an even better job of drawing an angle bisector. That look like just about cuts it in half? About there? That's pretty close. Okay, let's say this is an angle bisector, and I cut this angle in half. Okay? What happens is a neat thing that happens here. I'm going to call this X, I'm going to call this Y, I'm going to call this W, and I'm going to call this Z. Now the book, I'll show you how I see this. What happens is, and it's right either way, but how I was taught this, it's just kind of odd, is that because this cuts this angle perfectly in half, the pieces over here are proportional to the pieces over here. In other words, X over Y is equal to W over Z. You guys see what I'm saying there? Because this is perfectly in the middle, because it's an angle bisector, the parts created here are proportional. So this over this equals this over this. If you cross multiply, what do I get? XZ is equal to what? YW. Now the book, this is how the book will give this to you. And they're right too. I'm not saying they're wrong. They will say X over W is equal to Y over Z. Now I want you to look at this. I kind of thought of the parts on the right side over the parts on the left side, right? You know, I had the part up here corresponding to that one. This also makes sense. Isn't this a whole side of the triangle? That whole side corresponds to that whole side. This whole side corresponds to what? So, that's why they say X over W equals what? Y over Z. Now, how do you know these are the same? If you ever get on some of these where you get, where you get caught kind of where you can't remember, you're in a test and you think, wait, I can't remember, is that right or is that, I know this is right. cross multiply and see if it's the same thing. What do you get here? XZ equal to what? WY, right? But isn't that the same thing as what? And aren't these the same? And when you do stuff that's gets you more into proportions, you'll see that these proportions can be written in different ways, can't they? As long as the cross products are the same, the fractions are the same, right? Anyhow, so when you get this situation, you have some things that are proportional. So I want everyone to look at number 8 on page 91. So we'll turn the page back over. What do I obviously have here? What does this mean when I say this is congruent to this? This thing is an angle what? Which makes more sense to you? 24 over 20 equal to x over 7, or 24 over x equals 20 over 7? Which one clicks with you guys more? Really? I would like, you know how you get caught doing something a certain way? And 24 over x, because they're on the same side, is equal to what? 20 over what? Cross multiply, 20x is equal to what? What's 7 times 24? Divide both sides by 20. X is equal to what? I can't hear you. 8.4. Okay. Easy peasy, right? Any questions there? You guys see how it's that over that, that over that? We okay? Now I want you to look at page 92. And I am recording this so you can watch the lesson again. This is the last one we'll do. What about something like this? In this section, if you have only one triangle with an angle bisection, you know that it's this over this equals that over that. Well, I see I've got 30 over what? That has to be equal to 20 over, I don't know this one though, do I? No. Now I want you to look at it closer though. You know that here to here is some number x, right? And the whole thing is what? If this was 5, what would this be? Huh? If I said that it was 5, what would this be? 23? If I said it was 10, what would this one be? 18? How are you getting that every time? You're taking what, with the whole thing, and you're subtracting what? See how you can sometimes put numbers in there to kind of lead you what to do without the numbers. So obviously this is 28 minus what? Does that make sense that that's what that side is? So that's what we can put into our what? Proportion. 30 over x is equal to what? 20 over 28 minus x. Cross multiply. And I get, what's 30 times 28? Somebody tell me.
840.
So 840 minus what? 30x is equal to what? 20x. We okay there? What's my next step? And you guys can look up here because this is the last one we're doing. What would I do next? Me, I'd add 30x to both sides. That's just me, though. You guys agree with that, or are we not awake enough to agree with that? You ate too much at lunch. Now I'd divide both sides by what? What do you get x equal to? Your assignment. Right now it's due tomorrow. However, you work the rest of this hour until the bell rings. And tomorrow, I might let you turn it in at the first of the hour on Monday.